It's really understanding with the client what they want to do, because with all the will in the world, they might have seen something really cool in VR, but it might not be the best medium for them to get the most experience out of their investment in the technology.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Squeezing the Juice, the XR podcast from Juice Immersive. On this show, it's my pleasure to welcome Anna Burke, Director of Animated Technologies, who are exploring innovative ways to showcase technology. Anna, welcome to Squeezing the Juice.
Thank you very much. Nice to be here.
Good to have you. So you're dialing in from beautiful North Wales in Anglesey, I believe?
It is beautiful. It's a little bit grey today, but I promise you it is beautiful.
Even on a grey day.
Yeah, even on a grey day.
Probably trumps the River Mersey where we are. So thank you for joining us, Anna. First of all, I just thought it'd be good to maybe get a bit of background to the business and what you guys do at Animated Technologies and the sorts of storytelling techniques and technologies that you guys work with.
Yeah, definitely. So we've been going as Animated Technology since 2017. So we've just had our 7th year now, which is amazing. And we originally started as an animation studio. So we focused on creating 2D and 3D technical animations for engineers, technology companies, manufacturing companies, companies like that. And then it was really probably around 2021, after COVID, obviously, during that whole period. And we really thought, right, we had the opportunity to sort of expand our services to VR and AR because of the knowledge that we had with 3D within the animation world and the storytelling and the way that we work and produce our products. We introduced VR and AR into the services at Animated Technologies, and that's where we are now, creating sort of bespoke VR, AR trail apps, things like that nature, and technical animations. But it's all sort of centered around the 3D and the user experience and sort of telling these stories.
Fantastic stuff. So you guys are kind of almost a living, breathing embodiment of that convergence of those types of technologies. Tell me a bit about what that was like, starting to adopt and embed those new forms of storytelling into what you do.
I think at the core of what we do, it doesn't really matter whether it's animation or whether it's VR or whether it's AR. I think what we really focus on is the user and what they need and the experience that they have, whether it's somebody that is trying, whether we're trying to explain a plasma fluidic system, which is obviously, highly exciting bit of kit, very, very technical as well, or whether we're trying to sort of translate some training materials with VR. It's understanding that sort of user experience and how they can pick up and learn things about that company, about that brand, using the visual, using sound, using all these different elements that you can have within immersive with animation. So I think that's what we kind of focus on with all of the products that we create, really, with Animated Technologies.
You mentioned how technical some of the subject matter is of your work and kind of just a brief look at your portfolio of projects, from revolutionary satellites to subaquatic tidal sails, you really do tell some quite complex and technically advanced stories, I suppose. Give us a bit of insight into that. What's that like from the point of view of understanding in the first instance what the narrative needs to be and how best you can convey that visually or immersively, as the case may be?
Yeah, well, it really does boil down to people's attention. So in terms of animation, you've got 30 seconds because to get your main points across. And then we have to understand what the end user, what that target market, who that target market is. So we are appealing to a certain demographic of person, certain job title, certain industry. It really does boil down to marketing, whether people are going to be receptive to the technology, what we need to tell them to really kind of hook them in. I would say it would be a lot easier to a degree with immersive, just because immersive VR and AR is just so like awe-inspiringly cool. People are a bit harder to reach with animations and sort of video content, because video is everywhere. So, you know, we see videos all the time. We're on TikTok, we're on Instagram. Do you know what I mean? It's a video world. It's a short form video world. Immersive, it can be a lot easier to sort of translate that information, but we still really try and make it as creative as we can. And I know that is what stands us apart from our competitors, is that we use our creative brains to really translate and help our clients with videos. And that translates with the work that we do with the VR and AR as well, because immersive is fantastic, but if you've got an experience that is a bit dull, it's going to leave the user feeling a bit like they're not going to want to come back to it. And we want experiences that people come back to it.
Absolutely. I mean, to sort of flip that around, I guess, to look at it from the perspective of a client or a prospect, if an enterprise client, say, or a manufacturer is thinking about the story that they need to tell and the audience they need to tell it to, maybe they're thinking, oh, I saw a really cool VR or an AR experience at a conference and we should consider that form of storytelling. How would you recommend they sort of appraise the brief they need to write, or is that part of your kind of first step with them, really?
Yeah, it's really understanding with the client what they want to do, because with all the will in the world, they might have seen something really cool in VR, but it might not be the best medium for them to get the most experience out of their investment in the technology. So we recently did a technical animation for Centrica Energy Storage, which explains how they are retrofitting their gas rigs off the east coast of England into hydrogen rigs, and the impact that will have on carbon emissions, net zero, and the development of the refinery site that it connects to. And they wanted like an immersive experience. They talked about VR because they've seen other VR experiences, etc. But what they wanted to do was engage with their stakeholders. So everybody's got smartphones. So it was more appropriate that we created an AR app for them. It was more appropriate, and it was more kind of, I don't want to say cost effective, but I'm going to say cost effective, rather than developing a completely VR experience that you can only reach the people on exhibition stands. With an AR app, they can reach a lot more people. People just download it from the Apple or Google stores. Everybody's got it on their mobile phones. And do you know what I mean? You can have that experience with people in a lot more ways, and there's a larger reach. And it's really cool as well. So using the same models from the animation, we just heavily optimized them, put them into a bespoke AR app, and then people could still see and interact. It's just like a really nice little touch point.
Yeah, I think you're right to identify that it is for a lot of people, it is still a new experience to do something in AR or with AR. And if we used to get wow moments in VR, I think now we get more of them with AR, where we deploy those types of experiences. So, but do you find sometimes you need to, I don't know, re-educate a client? That's probably the wrong word, but maybe talk them down from a particular path they thought they might be heading down. And how does that sort of tend to flesh out?
Yeah, sometimes I think people see other experiences of people and they might be completely appropriate, but it all depends. We can sort of take a look at the technical side of things, like if people want a web app or if they want a standalone app, is there Wi-Fi in the area? What do they actually want to feature on the app? Is this app that they want to create, is it going to be so huge that they have to delete all the other apps off their phone? Do you know what I mean? To download it. So just kind of taking all of the user experience, what is going to be best for the location that it's going to be used in. But mobile phones are getting better and better nowadays, but there's still limitations. And definitely with AR, if it's a trail app, etc., is there Wi-Fi in the area? All of these, particularly where we are in Wales, some of the areas can be a little bit dodgy with Wi-Fi. That's just one of the technical sides that you have to think about.
Dodgy with Wi-Fi, but when you look up from your phone, it's pretty stunning.
Yeah, exactly.
I think, so there's a payoff. So from the point of view of some of the work you do to translate what can often be quite a technical process or product insight into something that is a consumable experience for the audience, do you have a sort of favorite project or a time that you delivered a piece of work and you thought, you know what, that is going some to have achieved that with the subject matter, with the narrative? We've really managed to kind of lean heavily on the form and translate that into something. Was there something that really stood out? Yeah,
I think it's a project that we're sort of wrapping up at the moment, but it's one that we've been working on with the client for the past 2 years. So it is a VR application, but it's not technical, so to speak. So it's a VR application to help children to learn Welsh. So we have been working with Gwynedd Council and their immersion centres. And immersion centres are sort of little classroom pods within high school, throughout Wales, that help children that don't speak Welsh to learn Welsh, sort of like little intensive courses. So we had the discussion with them a couple of years ago about developing. So they use this narrative of this town, and this town is called Aberrula. And within the town, they teach different sections within the museum, supermarket, and all the different little Welsh, the Welsh words and role play, etc. So what we've done, we've created that town in VR. And the children can go in there, they can go into the supermarket, they can go into a car garage, they can go into a museum, and a forest, farm. There's all these different sections, and the kids can just kind of run around, or walk, whichever. But what is nice is that the curriculum and the teaching that they're teaching within the immersion centres is translated into the application. And because we're working with kids, we've put games in everything. So you go to the farm area and you have to go to a certain person and you have to have a conversation with them. And then you can fly a drone that goes around the whole village and you can take pictures. And that is part of the game, the gamification side of things. So it's really sort of, it's using VR at its best. It's helping children to learn a language. I cannot speak Welsh. I have tried. One of the main things is distraction. People getting distracted and motivated to learn. So using VR, you cut out the distraction and they absorb the language learning so much more. And it's just so much fun and it's cool. Because I've got 2 young boys, 7 and 9. They've both been sort of testing it throughout its whole development. Like whenever they come in the office for, school holidays and whatnot, they're like, oh, can we have a go? Can we have a go? So I'd say that is our I think that is my sort of proudest sort of virtual reality experience that we've done, just because it's so innovative and there's not anywhere else there's not anywhere else in the country that's developed something like that.
It sounds amazing. The school kid in me really wants to get lost in this, in that world. And despite the Welsh name, sadly, I have no Welsh heritage. I found out recently via Ancestry. But I think, it sounds fantastic. That and did that project open up kind of a whole load of new challenges to you from the point of view of multi-language application and that kind of thing? Yeah,
it did, and it's. So we've had to sort of work with the teachers to sort of come up with the scripts and really understand the conversations and the role play that they have. And I think we found as we sort of, the way it was created was sort of section by section. So we started off with the supermarket first, and then we went to the farm, and then we developed this, and then we developed that, and we sort of found throughout the development, by the time we've got to the end of it, the supermarket doesn't look as good as the other bits that we've created. So, throughout the time, the design side of things, we've had to really look at the whole experience, because it's being created like modularly, and we've had to look at the whole experience and really sort of clean it up heavily so that it creates a consistent user experience and one that we can sort of put our name to and say, yeah, we're really, really proud of that.
Fantastic stuff. So from an education standpoint, presumably you're like we are a big advocate of not just VR but extended reality technologies more widely for educational experience and learning. But yeah, tell me your sort of views and your insight on that. Do you think that your kids will be utilizing these types of technologies as a matter of course in their educational journeys?
I see it. It's almost like every kid in school has got a Chromebook. So every kid's got a Chromebook now. I don't see why every school wouldn't have a VR headset. It just makes sense. It's just like, we need to teach children, and what's the best possible way to do that is to immerse them, particularly with language, in the environment of the language they're learning, in the country of the language they're learning. There's VR applications out there where you can do science experiments, which is a lot safer. Granted, it's not as fun as, starting up the Bunsen burner. I remember those days, starting up the Bunsen burner and trying to burn that peanut to figure out the calorific content of a peanut. But there is something that is just realistically more accessible with VR. And I think children get it. Children totally get it. My 7-year-old, he's 7 now, but they put on a headset and they get it more than adults do. Some of the adults you give the headsets to and they're just like, oh, they're pressing the wrong buttons. We're like, no, calm down. So we almost have to design VR experiences sort of down for a more mature audience. But I would definitely say VR is going to be in the majority of schools in the next coming years. It's just I don't see it going, if that makes sense. It's not like the Concorde where it was amazing and then they got rid of it. It's not going to do anything like that.
And I completely concur that it's a million times easier onboarding a young person into a VR headset experience than an adult. In fact, they almost laugh at you when you try to onboard them. They just grab it off you. You know what they're doing.
Yeah, exactly.
So did that project ultimately, or will that project ultimately lead on to some other things for the business as well? Is there other things that it might kind of motivate and inspire, having worked on a big project like that? Yeah,
it has. It's given us so much insight to the point where we are now looking for investment to develop our own version of Aberula. So our own version will be multi-language. It won't just be English to Welsh, Welsh to English. It'll be, it'll have French in there, it'll have German, it'll have Polish, it'll have Italian. It'll have multiple languages in there because there are other applications out there that are for language learning and that do use VR. But honestly, they're just not quite there. They're not quite hitting the nail on the head. And I think, again, like I said before, it's understanding the user experience and what they really need. So that is kind of the core and the basis. Like, all of learning a language has never really changed, but we're just using better tools to facilitate that.
Good stuff. Thanks, Anna. I think the fact that you're sort of embarking on an investment journey off the back of a project like that is perhaps not unique. Actually, we're in a similar situation. We're about to open a fundraising investment round early next year as a result of a couple of projects like that have just inspired an advancement of an area of technology, I suppose. But out of interest, will this be the first time the business and yourself have been on an investment journey, or have you been around this block before?
No, this is the first time I would have been on an investment journey. So it's quite daunting, the scope and scale of the materials that you need to get together, and things like that. So it will be a massive learning curve for us. But I know that's just a stepping stone. It's almost like we have to dot the T's. No, we have to cross the T's. We have to dot the I's in order to get to the product. And the product is what we know what we're doing with, and we know how to do it.
Yeah, I think it's fascinating, and it'd be great actually as we both move forward in our respective journeys there to maybe share some learnings and probably war stories along the way as well. But I think it's kind of a necessary thing. It seems that, by virtue of what we do, often we end up coming up with new solutions or new product ideas that have real legs, and inevitably, to get that first mover advantage in any marketplace, you need that investment behind you to realize it. So good luck in that journey, and we'll see what we can do to cross promote our efforts there.
Watch this space.
Scary world of investment. Good stuff. So in terms of what you're up to other than that in the near future, Anna, where do you see kind of the big trends in terms of maybe the type of work coming your way, or the type of thing that clients and prospects are after at the moment? What do you see is happening out there?
Well, I know obviously from our point of view, there's a huge investment in renewable energy, particularly with the budget that's just been, and the push for energy within the company. Renewable energy animations are a big thing for us, and the promotions that come from that. It's difficult to say, because I think for the last year, there's been a real shift with investment in VR and AR, because I think, like everybody, there's been a real pinch on the old budgets, shall we say, in terms of marketing. And so it would be interesting to see from the budget that has just been how that impacts with training and development on companies and investment and promotion. I'm not quite sure where it's going to go and how it's going to develop at this stage. But we'll see.
Good stuff. Yeah, we work in utilities ourselves quite a lot, and I think that it's an interesting beast, utilities, because they're in some respects very progressive in terms of the drive to net zero and the complete kind of overhaul, if you like, of the energy system that's required to achieve that. But then in another respect, the organizations and the sector as a whole can be a bit of a tanker by their own admission often in terms of implementing new ways of doing things and new ways of working. But I think similarly to us, you probably find your niche and your value add works really beautifully in that sector when you pair up with a progressive and a forward thinking organization as a client.
Yeah, I totally agree with that.
Good. Excellent. Good stuff. Yeah, it's quite an exciting place to work, actually. I think that we were at the Energy Innovation Summit just over the way here in Liverpool last week, and it's there's a lot of exciting things going on in that space. And I think as adopters of not just XR technology, but just new ways of working and new ways of doing things, they're a really interesting industry. So lots of sort of synergies, I think, with the way you guys work and who you work with. Do you find that the fact you've got that heritage in, if you like, traditional flat animation and video content, do you find that sort of gives you a bit more depth to what you do, so that you can fall back on some of those more traditional disciplines where a client kind of wants that from you?
Yeah, I mean, it's another string to the bow, isn't it? So the more services that you can offer, the more scope you have as a company. What is good with the services that we offer is they're all image based, so they work really well within all the different mediums. So the skill set that we have in the team in house can translate from, we can have the animator optimizing the models that are then used within Unity to create whichever application, and we have that experience. So I would say it's just a really good extension of what we can do.
Good stuff. From a technology perspective, we try not to get too kind of bogged down in tech and hardware on this show, but just for the benefit of clients and kind of enterprise viewers, what would you say is the most exciting kind of development we've either had of late, or perhaps that we're set to have in the near future, from the point of view of clients and what that art of the possible is for their storytelling?
I think the development of I really like the Quest 3 headsets, and just the quality, the color pass through that they have. It's obviously leaps and bounds to what the Quest 2 was. And I think I was never really sold on like the HoloLens, because I think the field of view that you can get from the XR, the XR view with it is, I was never quite like, is this going to be, do you know what I mean? Is this just a product that is gimmicky for one particular time? But I could see the technical, the pass-through vision with the Quest 3 just having so much more scope, just because of its flexibility. You've got that increased viewpoint with it. It's not fully there, but I think it's definitely getting there. As for future technology, I have no idea. When it comes out, I'll be able to look at it. I don't have time to look at the future stuff. I'll have to ask the developers what they've been geeking out on, I'm afraid.
It's funny because I think a lot of people have that wider team input into the commentary on the technology, but I think ultimately all that we find ourselves worrying about is what the client's view of it is, and if we can help them see a use for it and a big step forward because of a new release, a new piece of hardware, then I think there is something in that. But until that time, it's just another launch, right? It's just another thing that people are making lots of noise about. But I'm sure you probably find the same thing. There's this thirst among the client base for faster advancement in the technology. And, it feels, like you say, about the field of view issues, it feels like we've had those barriers and challenges forever and a day. And you would have thought that by now they would have been overcome. But it's just a slow marathon, isn't it?
Yeah. And I don't think I think obviously all these new products are coming out, and the new, is it Orion, the glasses from Meta?
Yeah, we did
They look fine if you all want to look like, go gadget sort of thing. They're fine, but I can't, from a user experience and a practical experience, which I am actually quite practical. It annoys me, but I am. I don't know what you're going to use them for. Do you know what I mean? You're walking around, and then I wear glasses. So how does that fit with my eyeglasses? Do you know what I mean? Are these glasses just for people that aren't, challenged with sight? I think they're just gimmicky. I think we have tools that add real value. They will develop and get better and better and better. But some of the tech stuff that comes out, I'm like, not convinced.
Good stuff. Love that. It's quite refreshing. Thank you, Anna.
That's okay.
I think from the point of view of accessibility, which you sort of touched on there, and I guess inclusivity, which your Welsh language kind of project is all about. Presumably they're fairly important values to your business in terms of the work that you do. Can you talk a bit about that for us? And how is your production process, I guess, informed by accessibility and inclusivity when you look at a brief or a new project?
I think if you are creating anything for anybody, you have to take that into account. I think it is really, I'm trying to think of like a really good word to say, but it's really rubbish if you're not thinking of that. It's like creating those glasses, which only people that, those Orion glasses, only people without glasses can wear them. It's like, well, you've just excluded half the population that are ocularly challenged. It's just, disability is only a disability if they don't have the ability to do something. So if we can create experiences that cover as much as we can, then I think that's just super important. I think it's quite arrogant to not include it as a basis for anything that we do.
And it's a mindset, right? That's kind of an ethical mindset that a whole team kind of adopts and finds. It has to be second nature, I think, in terms of considering those things at the outset.
Yeah, and I think it's really important as well that I'm a woman. Our art director is a woman. We have, the woman to male ratio within the company is 50-50. I think that is super important as well when we're designing stuff. When we were designing, and even like designing elements within Aberula, within the VR language learning application, developing, going through the supermarket, and then it just suddenly occurred to me, what if, because you have to sort of point at items on a shelf, and then it sort of creates the fishing line, and then you can grab them using the gripper button. But kids aren't as tall as us. We only just suddenly realised that halfway through. We're like, children are a lot smaller. We need to take that into account when we're developing these experiences. If we're not developing them for child sizes, then it's not going to work. And likewise, we were thinking, how are their fingers going to work on the buttons? Because they got smaller fingers. You've got to think of like the smallest possible person to possibly use it, and then everybody else will be included. So I think it's having lots of different mindsets and testing and making sure you're going through these processes that reveal the problems. Because if you're just like, yeah, we'll create you a product, this is what you've asked for, there's been no conversation, there's been no back and forth, I think that's a pretty poor way to do things.
Yeah, it's part of our responsibility as producers, isn't it? To whether or not the client thinks to include it in their brief, it's got to be part of the project and big consideration. Just out of interest, in the Aberula supermarket, do the kids get to sort of dive between shoppers' legs and in front of their trolleys, because
no, they don't. But it is, the game within the supermarket is like supermarket sweep. So they do have a shopping list. They've got a shopping basket. They've got a timer. They've got to go round. But there is quite, we've got a little video clip we've recorded, because there is it has like a multi-person function to it as well. So obviously with headsets, you can have up to 30 people in the one application. So we actually tested it with about 15 kids, and they were all in the supermarket. And they were all just picking up the fruit and just chucking it at each other. Yeah. And then they were trying to catch it, and we were like, it's fine. They throw 5, the program will just reset at the end of it. So, there's no tidying up at the end of it. But here's a video that we've taken of the experience. And it's just about 15 kids just chucking stuff, picking it off the shelf. But if you think about it, they're learning what they're picking up, and they're having fun while they're doing it. And I think if they're having fun, kids are going to go back to it. And then learning isn't a chore then. It's an experience, and it's a positive one. Yeah,
as long as they're shouting banana in Welsh as they're throwing it.
And it's like the scene tidies up itself. Nobody has to go in and deal with that afterwards. So, yeah.
Great stuff. Okay. Lovely stuff. I think we'll look to bring it to a wrap, Anna, if that's okay. But just from the point of view of your team and what you're sort of excited about for perhaps 2025 and beyond.
Really excited about the projects that we've got in the pipeline, and obviously the investment. So if like yourselves, we'll be looking to look for investment and start that round in January, luckily, after the Christmas period, all the turkey's eaten, and then we'll be starting that process. But yeah, I'm really excited to be creating that.
Good stuff. Lovely. Anna, thank you so much for coming on the show, and we'd love to have you back again in the future, and we'll keep in touch on our respective investment journeys, and share our nightmares and positive stuff as well. So thank you very much for joining us. That's been Anna Burke, Director of Animated Technologies. See you next time on Squeezing the Juice. Thanks, Anna.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us for this episode of Squeezing the Juice. I hope you enjoyed the show. If you'd like to give us a thumbs up, a like, or a follow, wherever you get your podcasts, it'll help us grow our tribe as we build the pod. I look forward to welcoming you back soon, when we'll be squeezing the juice with another guest from the world of XR. Until then, take care.